Okay, so
Here you go.
how does this work? So the green button is probably go next. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Timer is there. Good luck.
And the timer is there. So I have 10 minutes. There's an echo on my sound here. Do you have an echo as well? Or is it okay? Okay. So I wanted to go through a couple of things with you guys and just reflecting on some of the things that I've heard during the morning here and towards into the afternoon. Great discussions. I think actually most of the discussions are situated within the current paradigm of how we can optimize the current system, and is actually not recognizing that we actually need a total shift on how we fund deep tech to actually make a dent into the problem. So we need to stop thinking about the current venture capital as something that we can sort of optimize on. We need to maybe also stop thinking that we can sort of optimize only through governments. We are sort of faced with an existential problem around the green transition. We also have great competitors right now, especially in China. And by the way, if we took the perspective of the planet, the best thing right now would be to start buying Chinese, because they are pretty far ahead in most all the technologies that we need. So the question that I wanted to ask today is some hints to some of the current work that I'm doing right now, and to say how can we have maybe a different type of venture capital, and what could some of those principles look like if we were to actually make a dent into the problem, which is, by the way, not any longer to provide early stage capital to deep tech companies. There's actually sufficiency, generally speaking, in Europe of that. The main problem right now is growth equity and actually scaling up these companies and providing the right type of venture capital to also provide for the facilities around production. We seem to have forgotten completely that things need to be produced. It seems to be great that we can do things 10 times, but the innovation in production that we actually need, generally speaking, in Europe, is not getting attention enough. And that's where we actually need to crowd in completely new types of LPs. We do not talk enough about our own positions of strength, which is in our pension funds, in our high net worth individuals, in our family offices, for example, and also in our foundations. And these are the ones that we need to activate in a completely different manner if we want to be part of the competition with, for example, with China. Because I always say that you can compete in two ways. You can compete to win, and you can compete not to lose. Generally, in Europe, we are incredibly good at competing in not to lose, which means that we are not proactive, we are reactive. We panic in Brussels when the US send out the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, suddenly panic. We need to do something. If we knew how to compete, we would have done that. So when I go to Brussels, what I'm seeing is a little bit, oh, we hate the IRA, but secretly they're like, oh, we would have liked to have done that, right? So I think there is a fundamental shift that needs to happen if we are to start competing, and just one part of that is the venture capital, and I'm going to look into that right now, and now I have 6 minutes left. So the question today, if you were to support deep tech ventures in today's innovation economy, how could you do it? So let me just give you 3 pointers to how you could start answering this question. 3 principles of VC as a vector of change. Strategic, programmatic, and patient. The opposite terms of these is what actually characterizes most classic VC. It's not strategic, it's opportunistic. It's not about programs, no, it's about optimized portfolios only for financial optimization. And it's not patient, it's short-sighted. It's not about I want to give you the money. I want to give you my money so that you can change the world. It's more about I want to give you the money so you can optimize me how I can quickly get into a nice car. That's generally It's just another way of talking about being financially optimized. I'm just trying to say it in a different way. I can say that it's tax optimized. I can say it's financially optimized. It's the same thing at the end of the day. And that's a problem. So we need to move in a world where we set up funds and we set up fund managers that focus on being strategic, programmatic, and patient. What does that mean? The first two ones actually come together. You need to start thinking as a fund manager from what I call from the right to the left. You need to identify a problem in the world that you would like to solve. And from that viewpoint, you need to start investing into companies from a strategic viewpoint that will build solutions within that space. As you do so, you'll be programmatic in your approach, and you'll be not opportunistic in your approach. By the way, the most everyday life in a VC is moving names in a spreadsheet from phases, right? And a lot of VCs, what they do is they buy consultants to send them decks that they then look at. So it's a very opportunistic behavior that we're actually seeing in most venture capital. So you need to start being much more strategic about where you want to focus. So how will this then actually look like? Let's take the example of, let's say, quantum technologies. The quantum technologies right now is emerging technology. We call it an emerging technology because we do not know yet exactly what it's going to be used for and if it works. We also know that quantum technologies have different areas of use. So a strategic investor within quantum technologies will be focusing on specific areas of use and would then make specific investments within that program to build a group of investments that are not characterized by being a de-risked portfolio, a balanced portfolio, but be a portfolio that will try to, if these companies were to be successful, they will be able to actually solve the problem in the world. And they would also be investments where they will be careful to do investments not only in a specific company, but also in its production. Being a strategic investor means that I'm not just interested in investing in one company or two companies. I'm also interested in investing in the whole value chain, getting it from early stage actually into production. That means that we stop caring so much about just an exit, which is sort of, the success of venture capital, but we start caring about also investing into companies that can actually take a specific solution to the market at scale. And we cannot just say that that's up to someone else to do. We need to say that lies within the responsibility of this fund. We need to take the full responsibility of not only investing into this specific company, but also being able to actually bring it to the market and at scale. And the way that you can do this, you can only do this if you have access to patient capital. A lot of the patient capital that we have in Europe is around in our pension funds and obviously in our foundations. Currently in the UK, the main investor in pharma and medical devices is American pension funds. Why is it not UK pension funds? Isn't that weird? How about Europe? Isn't it weird that we sort of say, well, it's the money that comes from the outside that goes in? Why are we not leveraging on our own strengths? And the point is that we need this money because it's there, it lies there, and if we want to compete, we need to sort of make it accessible. And the most important thing is also that it is exactly this type of money that will give you a capital stack so that you can actually take a company and you can also provide them, for example, with a production facility. In that sense that, for example, pension funds would be an ideal investor into production facilities because it's infrastructure and it's hard tech. Most VCs would never go into this, but that's where pension funds, that's where foundations actually come into play. That's when you actually reach to the market and you need to actually go and raise maybe more than 100 million euros because now you're moving into actually production when it actually matters. And you know what happens in Europe? At that stage, it leaves and it goes to the US. So if we do not provide this type of capital in Europe, we keep staying the accelerator for the rest of the world. And that's a problem. So we need a completely new system. If we keep optimizing on our existing system and we not provide the right type of capital coming from these new type of alternative investors, we are just optimizing the current model of failure. If we do not actually provide in those countries the availability of new types of production, even also in the quantum tech areas and in many other areas, we are not part of the solution. We're part of the problem for Europe. 2 weeks ago, an Australian think tank put out a report about, technological competitiveness. The competition right now in about 30 areas of technology is between the US and China. Europe was not mentioned. That's a problem. It's a problem for our welfare, our way of living. And we need to get this right. And by the way, if we also make some of those investments in some of those production facilities that actually then have these solutions actually matter, we are actually also re-educating our blue-collar workers. Because the people that have lost the last 20 years, because we outsource everything, are the blue-collar workers. And the result in many countries is social instability. So there's a clear political viewpoint here that I'm also conveying to you guys. If we do not invest right in deep tech, if we do not invest in the right way to actually establish in production, we will get social unrest. So suddenly VC is not just about driving a Ferrari. It's about something important. Thank you.